Amidst the shimmering chandeliers and the soft strains of music, the royal gala pulsed with elegance and power. Yet, beneath the golden light, venom seeped quietly. Laura Lopez, Queen Camilla's daughter, lifted her glass of red wine and let her words fall. Sharp, deliberate, cruel. "You must rarely have time to truly understand art," she said, her half-smile glinting like a blade. Guests froze mid-laughter. The air thickened, and in that silence, a single insult rippled across the room like a crack in marble. Kate's smile never faltered, but beneath the silk of her gown her hands clenched. Her heart hammered in her chest, blood rushing like a storm through her veins. She had endured whispers, barbs, and false courtesies before, but this one was different. Delivered in public, under the approving gaze of Camilla, it cut to the bone. Years of proving herself through tireless charity work, diplomacy, and quiet strength felt dismissed in a single sentence. Kate breathed deeply, drawing on every ounce of discipline. She returned Laura's word with a calm smile and a soft, measured response. "Thank you for the advice. I'm always learning." The room exhaled, but the war had already begun. Camilla's eyes glimmered with satisfaction. Her faint nod toward her daughter a seal of complicity. She had taught Laura how to strike, without raising her voice, how to wound without lifting a hand. Laura smirked, turning away, convinced she had triumphed. But Kate's gaze lingered, unflinching, a silent warning that the battle was far from over. The music resumed, glasses clinked, and the chandeliers glittered, but their light seemed fractured now, like shards of glass reflecting the cracks forming within the family itself. That night Kate lay awake in Kensington Palace, the insult replaying in her mind. Every word Laura had spoken replayed not as an offhand remark, but as a declaration of war. Kate's resolve hardened. She would not crumble, nor would she allow herself to be painted as a hollow figurehead. The crown wasn't simply an ornament resting on one's head. It was a burden carried in silence, with strength, sacrifice, and dignity. Laura's arrogance had awakened something darker in her, something unyielding. In the days that followed, Laura's star began to dim. The headlines that once celebrated her charm turned sharp. Rumors of entitlement and arrogance crept into print. Her Instagram went quiet. Her public appearances dwindled. Friends distanced themselves, unwilling to stand too close to the fire. Alone in her flat, Laura scrolled through headlines dissecting her downfall. The taste of triumph she had savored that night curdled into ash. Camilla, though outwardly composed, felt the sting as well. Questions began to rise about her judgment, her silence, her influence. Alone at Clarence's house, she stood at the rain-lashed window and wondered if she had pushed her daughter too far into a game she was never equipped to win. The court of public opinion was ruthless, and Laura was bleeding before the world. But while mother and daughter faltered, Kate only grew stronger. At Buckingham Palace, beneath the glitter of another grand banquet, she arrived radiant in sapphire, the lover's knot tiara gleaming like a crown forged from fire. William stood beside her, pride etched into his face. Guests turned as she entered, every eye fixed on her, every whisper acknowledging her quiet ascendancy. In a corner, Camilla and Laura lingered in silence. Camilla lifted her chin, offering Kate the faintest nod. Kate returned it, polite, restrained, yet edged with steel. Laura never lifted her gaze. As the orchestra swelled and the chandeliers spilled light over polished marble, Kate glided to the hall with the confidence of someone who no longer needed to prove herself. She didn't gloat. She didn't speak. Her presence was enough. She had not just won an argument. She had claimed the battlefield. In that moment, the message was clear. Crowns are not secured by jewels or titles, but by will, endurance, and fire. And as she danced beneath the chandelier's glow, she knew the truth. No insult, no rival, no shadow would ever steal her light again. She sat by the window, the roses in the palace gardens glowing defiantly against the gray drizzle of London. Beauty stretched before her, but Kate felt none of it. The iPad in her lap blazed with humiliation. The Daily Mail's headline screamed, "Laura Lopez mocks Princess Kate, only good for posing." The words tore through her like glass shards. Social media swelled with noise. Some defended her, others crucified her, reducing a decade of dedication to a single insult. She gripped her teacup so tightly the porcelain seared her palm, but she didn't let go. She could still see Laura's smug smile at the gallery, Camilla's silence as sharp as betrayal. It wasn't just cruelty. It was strategy. Laura's words had been calculated, designed to unmake her, to strip her carefully built image as a relatable, intelligent, modern royal. And Laura was relentless. In the weeks that followed, she appeared everywhere. Tate Modern, Royal Albert Hall, exhibitions and galas. Always radiant, always polished. Cameras followed her as if she were already ordained. On Instagram, her captions dripped with subtle declarations, positioning herself not just as Camilla's daughter, but as a cultural force in her own right. The media drank it in. Comparisons multiplied. Kate, traditional, safe. Laura, confident, sophisticated. The sting was constant, corrosive. The breaking point came at St. James's Palace. Kate had poured herself into a project for young minority artists, her voice lit with conviction as she outlined it before the council. For her, it was more than policy. It was purpose. But Laura, seated across the polished oak table, cut her down with a smile. It's a nice idea, but shallow. We should focus on world-class artists, not just anyone. The words detonated in the room. Camilla didn't correct her daughter. She leaned in, cold and calm. Sometimes we're too sensitive to truth. Art demands honesty. Kate felt her nails drive into her palms, the burn in her chest like fire. She lowered her gaze, blinking back tears she refused to shed. This wasn't competition anymore. This was war. Each morning after, the headlines grew sharper. Laura Lopez, the royal family's new cultural star. Kate's work, her hospital visits, her speeches, her motherhood, all seemed erased by Laura's effortless posturing. Alone in her study, she felt the walls press in. Her anger grew from ember to blaze. This wasn't just mockery. It was an incursion. Laura was reaching for something she had no right to touch. A role built through sacrifice, through blood and endurance, not champagne smiles and photo ops. Then came the whisper. At a Mayfair party, Laura, flushed with wine, let her ambition spill. I want to be the young cultural ambassador of the royal family, she declared, as if the title were already hers. I can do what no one in the monarchy has dared. The words traveled quickly. When they reached Kate, they cracked something inside her. Sitting in the glow of a single desk lamp, she gripped her pen until her nails cut her skin. Enough. She would not be erased. She would not bow to an interloper. Kate summoned the advisors. In Clarence's house, beneath portraits of monarchs long gone, she spoke with a chilling clarity. Laura Lopez has gone too far. Her attacks are not just against me. They damage the monarchy itself. She is not a direct heir, yet she dares to pursue authority she was never meant to hold. This must end. The air thickened. The advisors exchanged cautious glances, their loyalty divided between Camilla's shadow and Kate's fire. An elder with silver hair finally spoke. Your Highness, a confrontation risks a civil fracture within the crown. The public may see it as war within the palace walls. Our counsel remains. Stay silent. Endure. The storm will pass. But Kate knew storms did not pass. They consumed. And as she stared across that stately room, her pulse a steady drum, she vowed she would not go quietly into shadows. Laura had turned this into a battlefield, and Kate had no intention of losing. The roses bloomed outside her window, their petals dripping with rain. They stood tall against the storm. So would she. Kate's fury didn't burn openly. It smoldered, silent, dangerous. Every word from the advisors cut her deeper than Laura's insults. Their hesitation, their cowardice, revealed the truth. They weren't hers to trust. They bowed to Camilla's shadow, protecting a fragile piece at the expense of Kate's dignity. She lowered her head, hiding tears, not out of weakness but out of isolation. Alone, in what should have been her family, she realized the truth. If the crown wouldn't shield her, she would forge her own armor. That night, Kensington Palace glowed softly, but inside the apartment the air was tense. Kate sat across from William, the weight of betrayal heavy on her shoulders. Her voice shook with anger as she relived the meeting. They want me silent, Will. To swallow humiliation just to keep Camilla happy. I won't. William's calm cracked, his fist clenched, his eyes darkened. They have no right. His voice was low, almost a growl. If they won't act, I will. But Kate's hand pressed gently against his, her voice cutting through his anger. No, Will. This fight is mine. I'll stand alone if I must. And so she began. Under the cold light of dawn, her study turned into a war room. Coffee sat untouched as she scribbled notes, her laptop aglow with dossiers. Laura wanted the cultural ambassador title. Kate would rip it from her reach. Not with scandal, not with shrill speeches, but with strategy. She'd outmaneuver them in silence, every move deliberate. Her weapon would be influence, her battleground, the very stage Laura craved. Her plan crystallized around Elena Martinez, a young artist mocked by Laura for her humble roots. Elena's art was raw, fearless, dripping with truth Laura could never understand. Kate remembered the humiliation in Elena's eyes when dismissed as unfit for royal circles. That memory hardened her resolve. If Laura claimed to know what class meant, Kate would redefine it, publicly, powerfully, through discreet meetings in shadowed cafes and whisper phone calls. Kate secured Elena as the centerpiece of London's most prestigious art exhibition. She went further, pushing Elena forward as the new cultural ambassador, the very prize Laura had paraded as her own. Each step was a gamble. Discovery meant scandal. Exposure meant failure. But Kate's fear only sharpened her edge. Her resolve was no longer about titles. It was survival. When Kate finally walked into Elena's studio, the air smelled of oil and defiance. Elena's suspicion melted into awe as the princess spoke. Kate didn't just offer her a role. She offered her validation. She painted a vision of a monarchy redefined, one that elevated talent over birthright. And in Elena's quiet nod, Kate found an ally, a reflection of her own struggle. Nights grew longer, plans sharper. William remained her silent confidant, torn between pride and fear. You're making a bold move, he whispered one evening. Kate's gaze didn't waver. This isn't revenge, Will. It's justice. It's proof that the crown belongs to those who fight for what's right. Meanwhile, Laura strutted through parties, her Instagram dripping with confidence, already wearing the title in her mind. Camilla, smug in her invisible power, fueled her daughter's ambition. Neither saw the storm gathering. The morning of the exhibition arrived, cloaked in rare August sunlight. London seemed to breathe in anticipation. Within the towering halls of the Victoria and Albert Museum, Elena's bold strokes commanded the walls. Critics circled, whispers thick with awe. Cameras flashed. Headlines prepared to crown a new cultural voice. And at the center of it all stood Kate, silent, radiant, lethal. She hadn't shouted, hadn't schemed loudly, hadn't begged for allies. She had simply acted. And when Laura arrived, dressed for a victory that was never hers, she walked into a hall that no longer belonged to her mother's influence or her own entitlement. It belonged to Kate. That night, beneath chandeliers and the watchful gaze of history, Kate didn't need to gloat. The message was written in every headline, every flash of the cameras, every stunned glance across the room. She hadn't just defended herself. She had conquered, because the crown, she proved, wasn't something you wore. It was something you seized. And Kate had seized it with bloodless precision, in silence sharper than any blade. The crimson gown cut through the crowd like a blade. When Kate entered the hall, the air shifted. The silk clung to her like armor, her hair cascading in effortless waves, her smile warm but edged with iron. Every step was deliberate, every glance calculated. Tonight was no ordinary gala. It was her battlefield. Weeks of secret calls, hushed meetings, and sleepless planning had led to this moment. She had risked her standing, her reputation, everything. But as the light struck her, she knew the risk would pay off. In the shadows, Laura stood with her mother. The emerald dress shimmered under the chandeliers, her chin raised in hauteur. Camilla, regal in pale violet, offered her trademark smile, polite, concealing daggers beneath. They were confident, certain the stage belonged to them, that ignorance was their weakness. The room fell silent as Kate stepped under the spotlight. She gripped the microphone with the calm precision of a commander preparing her strike. Her voice rolled out, warm yet commanding, slicing through the hushed crowd. She spoke of courage, of stories told against all odds. And then she unveiled her masterstroke, introducing Elena Martinez, a young artist in the working class, chosen as the royal family's cultural ambassador. The hall erupted. Applause thundered. Cameras flashed like artillery fire. Reporters scrambled, headlines already writing themselves. Kate's decision was radical, disruptive, impossible to ignore. Laura's dream shattered in real time, her face blanching as she clutched her glass. Camilla's lips tightened, her eyes darkened, the weight of humiliation dragging at her shoulders. They had been ambushed in front of the world. By midnight, the news cycle was ablaze. Kate crowns young artist, sidelines Laura Lopez. Princess Kate redefines royal leadership. Social media hailed her as a modernizer, the people's champion. Old clips of Laura mocking Elena resurfaced like ghosts, sealing her downfall. The tide had turned, and it was merciless. But triumph comes with shadows. When the last guest trickled out, the grandeur of the museum turned cavernous. In the marble corridor, Kate walked alone, her heels echoing like war drums. The adrenaline still pulsed, but the weight pressed hard. Victory carried its own cost. Then came the sharp sound of heels behind her. Laura appeared, emerald gown glittering like shard of glass, her face flushed with rage. "What do you think you're doing?" she spat, her voice breaking. "You chose her just to spite me." The venom was unmistakable. Kate stood still, her eyes cold as winter ice. Before she could respond, Camilla emerged, her presence like a shadow swallowing the hall. She seized her daughter's arm, her voice low and sharp. "Enough, Laura. Do not make this worse." But Laura tore free, her fury boiling over. Kate's reply was steady, cutting through the tension like steel. "I watched you mock, scheme, dismiss. I stayed silent long enough to see who you are. Now the world knows too." Laura's breath hitched, her arrogance crumbling. Camilla stepped forward, her gaze as sharp as knives. "Do you think this will last? You're playing a dangerous game, Catherine. And games like this," she paused, her voice chillingly precise, "end badly." The corridor turned to stone. The air was heavy, suffocating, but Kate did not falter. She stepped closer, her words a blade aimed straight at Camilla. "I don't need to win forever. I just need to win enough to remind everyone who carries the crown's future." For the first time, Camilla blinked. The mask slipped, revealing something she had never shown Kate before: fear. Laura shrank back, pale, trembling, defeated, and Kate, unshaken, turned her back and walked on. The drizzle outside kissed her face, the city's neon glow flickering against the wet streets. She inhaled deeply, the night air sharp and liberating. She had outmaneuvered them, not for glory, but to reclaim her power, her purpose. The cost was steep, the war far from over. But for now, in the damp London night, Kate smiled, not with triumph, but with unbreakable resolve. She would never bow again. After the Victoria and Albert exhibition, the monarchy's air grew dark, heavy as a storm pressing over London. Kate's triumph had cut through the family like a blade. Newspapers hailed her decision to name Elena Martinez as cultural ambassador. The Guardian, The Sun, every headline casting her as the fearless reformer dragging the monarchy into modern light. Pictures of Kate and Elena glowed with unity. The public adored her now, idolized her as a quiet warrior who defied arrogance. But Laura was a sacrifice. Her downfall was savage. Old party remarks surfaced like ghosts, none sharper than her sneer about Elena. How can a girl from the slums be classy enough to represent the royal family? Once tossed out with smugness, now it gutted her reputation. Social media branded her spoiled, arrogant, an imposter clawing at royalty. Hashtags mocked her, trending like a curse. The palace's silent memos sealed her fate. Laura would never hold a royal role again. In her Chelsea flat, silence pressed in. Her golden hair lay tangled. Her phone screen reflected endless headlines tearing her apart. Each click another wound. Friends vanished, doors closed, and even Camilla's voice turned cold. You let it go too far, she said, disappointment cutting deeper than any tabloid. Alone, Laura felt herself unravel. Camilla bore wounds of her own. Commentary turned sharp. The queen had failed to control her daughter, failed to guard the family from scandal. Critics questioned her judgment, her silence, her weakness. In Clarence's house, she stood at the rain-lit window, wondering if she had thrown Laura into a war she could never win. A month later, the palace gleamed with cruel brilliance. The banquet hall glowed with chandeliers and white roses, laughter chiming beneath silver cutlery. Kate entered last. Sapphire gown flowing like midnight, the lover's knot tiara crowning her with Diana's ghostly grace. William walked tall beside her, pride blazing. Every gaze followed them. In the far corner, shadows clung to Camilla and Laura. Camilla wore silver gray, regal but tense. Laura stood small and black, her eyes fixed on the floor. The world had moved on, and they were relics now, discarded pieces in Kate's ascension. When Kate's gaze caught Laura's, the room seemed to still. Laura's blue eyes flickered with pain, then dropped, unable to hold. Camilla squeezed her daughter's hand, but her own stare toward Kate carried grim acknowledgement. The war was lost. Kate gave a faint nod, no warmth in it, only power. Then she moved on, tiara flashing like fire in the chandeliers. She had claimed not just survival, but dominion. The crown was no longer a symbol. It lived in her, and the world knew it. Under the banquet's merciless light, Kate smiled. The victor's smile. Cold, final, unshakable. Like and subscribe to the channel for more updates.